Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing in Practice podcast, the podcast where I have the pleasure of simplifying the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. In today's episode, this is going to be part one of a two-parter, and we're talking about the art of ethical influence. I'm going to walk you through one of my favorite books, and a book that I think that should be mandatory reading for all chiropractors, a book by the amazing Robert Cialdini called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. So I'll introduce you to the 6 pillars of persuasion as well. Before we dive into it, I do want to differentiate between influence and manipulation, or persuasion and manipulation too, because sometimes when I'm teaching chiropractors this, there's an understandable hesitancy. Okay, now once I differentiate between those terms, hopefully that will help you embrace these concepts a lot more. We'll talk about some practical strategies to implement each of these pillars of influence. In fact, what I've done is I've created a fictional chiropractic practice, and we'll talk about what they're doing to implement the 6 pillars. Particularly in one of them, we're going to dive into ways that we can build more authority through things like signature systems. But before we dive too much into that, let's overview the 6 pillars of influence and persuasion. They are, in the order that they are in the book, in the order we're going to talk about them: reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, and social proof. And so in today's episode, we'll tackle all 3 of those. But let's do a bit of housekeeping first of all, okay? Now, when we're wanting to implement these into our practice, into the way that we communicate with our patients on social media or our website, all levels of interaction, communication, both verbal as well as digital, we want to be thinking about these pillars or principles of influence and persuasion. Now, there can be, if we work too hard to try and stack them all in, it ends up really fake and weird and odd. There are natural places where reciprocity really works, and other places where consistency is key, and another time when we might be using social proof. So this is not a matter of you trying to squeeze each and every one of these principles of influence and persuasion into every moment, okay? Let me take a moment to differentiate what I mean between persuasion and manipulation. Now, actually, before I do that, and Cialdini says very much in his book, these can be used as much for evil as they can for good. And I'm hoping that you, as a wonderful heart-centered chiropractor, if you listen to this podcast, that tends to be the sort of person that I attract here, is going to want to be using it for good rather than for evil. So when I think about persuasion, this is about getting an outcome for the patient that's as good for them, or it's better for them than it is for you. Okay. So at least as even at that too. Okay. Manipulation is when the outcome is better for you as the practitioner than it is for them. So you're trying to get something that ultimately where you win and they don't. So we want to be always shooting for a win-win scenario. Perhaps that's a better way to think about it. Persuasion is always win-win. When you build your practice up, when you build your communication up, when your marketing is win-win, then you'll become an incredibly influential chiropractor. But if you're trying to cut corners, if there's desperation, if you're trying to manipulate, there's a reason why us as chiropractors hate that word manipulation. We tend to think about adjustments instead. But if you're trying to get an outcome that's better for you than it is for the patient, then you are literally killing the golden goose. This won't work for you in the long term. So always keep in mind, when you're wanting to implement any one of these strategies, ask yourself this: is the outcome of this as good for the patient as it is for me? Now, when you're delivering really wonderful adjustments and you're having somebody involved in the chiropractic lifestyle, that has and lays the foundations for a situation that's certainly win-win. All right, let's jump into some of Cialdini's thoughts in around what led to him kind of studying this book as well. He goes on in the beginning of his books to explain that as humans, despite our complexity, there are certain predictable responses that we have to social cues. He talks about in the book this idea of click word, that something happens and there's a predictable response that we have. These cues is what Cialdini identifies as the principles of influence. So when we encounter a trigger that's aligned with one of these principles, we often respond in a very predetermined and automatic way. Now, as I'm going through some of the examples, you might find times in which you have responded in those ways. So let me go over the 6 principles of influence and persuasion again: reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, and social proof. So let's start with reciprocity. What's the definition? Okay, the principle of reciprocity is grounded in the human instinct to repay what has been received. In essence, as human beings, we feel a sense of obligation to give back when we've been given something. Now, importantly, the act of giving should be genuine and without explicit expectations, as this is what is going to uphold the ethics of the relationship. Okay, now, if we're trying to manipulate this, eventually you will get caught out. Now, I remember a situation of this a number of years ago when I had a small hole in my wall that I wanted to fix and patch, and about 4 stores down from me was an old school hardware store. Richard was the guy that owned it, had this beautiful, big, thick white beard, very D.D. Palmer-like, and a lovely Scottish accent. And he'd been in those kind of shops for as long as I had, and we'd formed a really lovely relationship. So I went down to Richard and I wanted to buy some putty to fix the wall there too. And I said to him, look, I just need a small tube of putty so I can fix this wall. It's only a small hole. And he didn't have a small tube, okay? But what he did do is he opened up a brand new one, let me use that, and then said, bring it back. He says, I often have people that they just need a little bit, and I'll use this kind of as a shop one that I can just kind of give out. So firstly, I thought that was nice and I was happy to pay for it. But when I bought it back, he said there's no charge. Now, what was interesting is I felt incredibly indebted to Richard in this situation. He'd done me a lovely favor and I wanted to go out of my way to repay that favor. And I thought about it all afternoon, and it was just as simple in this situation as buying him a coffee and a little muffin and sending it down there as a surprise to say thank you. Now, we have built inside of us, okay, this desire to want to repay people when they do something nice for us. Now, we can put this to use across all levels of our communication. It might be something as simple as when we had practice members come in on their birthday, then, we wanted to gift them an adjustment. At different times, I would gift supplements. I would gift pillows. Now, I tried not to do it on a consistent basis, like every time that, you refer somebody, I'll give you a pillow, because we know that gifts actually lose their power when they're predictable. But gifts are a really great way for you to use reciprocity. So think about it. Where are you using this? Okay, where are you going out of your way to be kind and generous? Where are you evoking the principle of reciprocity as well? So let's go through our fictitious chiropractic practice and let's share with you where they're doing. So currently, this practice sometimes provides free posture assessments at local community events, which people seem to appreciate. So when done genuinely and with value, if you're offering something like that, it can absolutely stimulate the principle of reciprocity, okay? Next thing they do to invoke reciprocity, they are planning on starting to regularly share valuable tips on their social media, okay? So high quality content on social media will absolutely evoke the law of reciprocity. So this means it must be of value there too. Again, on their website, this particular practice has lots of helpful videos and posture exercises, relaxation techniques, healthy lifestyle tips, so that when somebody comes along to their practice website, it's just full of value, okay? It really starts to, they're thinking, man, if their free stuff is this good, what must it be like to actually be a patient there? At different times, certainly for family members, we would offer a free initial consultation. That can be a great way of building goodwill, which is another way about talking about reciprocity as well. So these are just some of the little things that you could do if you really wanted to evoke and stimulate reciprocity as well. Now, here's a key thing to remember. The key to reciprocity lies not in the objective value of the gift, but rather its subjective value to that person. Okay, this doesn't mean if you're a new practice and you don't have a budget for this type of thing, it doesn't mean that you have to go out of your way. A small handwritten note. For the longest time in practice, we had literally a rule that all of our staff, including the associates and our front desk staff, is that we would write 3 letters, 3 handwritten letters with a small token of thanks and gratitude to our practice members, to community people, local shops as well. And there was very little monetary value inside of that, but there was a lot of subjective value because of the thought that went into it as well. So genuine thoughtfulness, personalization, and relevance can make a small gift really trigger that sense of reciprocity, okay? So you have to know the person that you're giving to. It's essential, however, that you approach this principle with genuine care and respect for the recipient, making sure that we're not giving something just to accept something back in exchange. We've all been in a situation where somebody has given with that intent and it never feels good at all. Okay, principle of influence number 2 is scarcity. Now, this is one of the more well-known one. It's also one that I see used a lot, and it's one that I see abused a tremendous amount as well. So the principle of scarcity revolves around the human tendency to place a higher value on things that are rare, exclusive, or available for a limited time. The desire for scarce resources can make a powerful motivator in decision making. Now, we can artificially create scarcity, and it's done in several different areas. The diamond industry, for instance, there are apparently billions of dollars of diamonds sitting in storage that are only very slowly leaked out to the public so that they remain scarce. Another luxury item that we see this done with is Rolex watches. Okay, they limit the number of watches that go out there. There's lots of watches they could make and they could sell them, but they limit the number out of them and that's what creates the scarcity. They're hard to get. That's what improves, therefore, the perceived value of them as well. Okay, so how could we use scarcity in our practice, and how do we do it in a way that is not going to be manipulative or is not going to be ruining kind of the brand value that you've built up? Okay, so the fictional practice as well, they have a very unique technique, okay, for addressing and helping unsettled children, okay? So they've developed it over years of experience. However, what they haven't done is they haven't really communicated it with their community, okay? So the techniques that you use, if you do something very different from the other chiropractors in your town, if there's a level of experience that you have, then there's scarcity in around that, okay? If you're the only chiropractor in your area that looks after kids, if you're the only chiropractor in your area that has, additional studies in pediatrics, if there's a specific technique that you have and you're the only chiropractor in your area that has it, then you should be letting people know that you're the only. When we use the word the only, we create a level of scarcity. So this particular practice realized that they do very particular work with children and they should be letting their communities know, okay? So that would be one way that you could go about sharing that, okay? The biggest challenge that most people have with this is communicating it in a way that doesn't sound like a sales pitch, okay? So again, they need to make sure that they're maintaining that patient-centered approach. If there is genuine scarcity, and I see this often, that you might have a limited time offer, $47 initial consultation for the next 7 patients, then you're out of integrity if you're giving that to person 8 or 9 or 10. In the two, if it's limited to 7, then that's what it should be. Now, not only is that an ethical issue there too, but it's a legal issue. It's false advertising if we go beyond that, okay? Now, again, other ways that we could do this, maybe you could be running special workshops. And if you're running a special workshop and it's only available on that one night, you should let people, it's only on this night. I'm not going to run it again. And we've only got 20 spots available. And then you could show things and let people know as they're registering, there's only 18 spots. 15 spots, things like countdown timers and stuff like that are a great way for us to add scarcity. So, a couple of ways. Is there a unique technique, approach? Is there a very particular sort of avatar or client that you look after? If there is, and you're one of only a few people that does this in your area, then you should be letting people know about that. If you're offering limited consultations or a limited decreased price for people to come in, make sure you let people know how many spots that you've got available. And again, for many practitioners, once you get busy, maybe you only have 1 or 2 new patient spots per week. You should let people know that as well, okay? And again, if you're putting on any special kind of event, let people know about the number of spots that are available also, okay? So the challenge with this one when it comes to scarcity is really just the ethical considerations, okay? So use it honestly, use it ethically. If you're claiming that something is scarce or available only for a limited time, that should be the case, okay? Misleading patients can and will harm your reputation and might well be illegal also. So while scarcity can increase the desire for a product, it's crucial that what you're offering also has to be of high quality, okay? So diamonds, they're beautiful and we love them and they're scarce. Same for Rolex watches. When you add those things that it's a quality product and it's scarce together, then the desire for it also, tends to go through the roof. Let's talk about authority, because this is an easy one for us to really make the most of. And many chiropractors aren't doing a good job of really letting their community know about the authority that they are, or positioning themselves rather as authority. Okay. So the principle of authority is rooted in the inherent tendency to defer to perceived experts or authority figures. Okay. So this deference stems from our belief that such individuals possess superior knowledge or capabilities, which prompts us to trust their judgment or advice. Okay. When you position yourself as an authority or an expert, people are much more likely to defer to you. In this case, we want them to deferring to us when they're having health challenges. Okay. They're looking for solutions to their health. If we've built up enough authority and expertise, they're much more likely to head our way. Now, there's an interesting thing when we look at authorities, both online and offline, across many different areas. One of the things that many authorities have in common is a signature system. They've developed their own way of going about it, whether it be a technique. I'll give you some examples in the moment there too. But a signature system is a unique branded process or methodology based on a specific expertise and experience. It's essentially a unique step-by-step plan that outlines exactly how a particular problem can be solved or a particular goal achieved. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of these in a moment, so stay with me. The system usually encapsulates a unique approach, methods, and techniques, and it distinguishes them from other people in the field. So what being an authority and what a signature system does is it positions you as different. Now, in marketing, being different is one of the most powerful things that you can be. In fact, it's often said that you're better to be different than it is better to be better. Now, too often what we're trying to do as chiropractors is position ourselves as being the best. Now, this is a very tricky thing to do and it's easily taken away, but it's much easier for you to position yourself as different. And a signature system is one of the things that does that. Now, a signature system is not only good from a marketing and communication point of view, it also serves as a really great, unique selling proposition and a clear roadmap. Okay, so it helps guide you. So I have several signature systems. I have the community influencer method. I have a 7-step distribution method that I teach community influencer members, and it helps me teach. It helps them learn better because they know where they are in the roadmap there too. Now, let me give you some examples. You might be thinking, well, what do I mean by a signature system? Well, this might be things like the Montessori method. Okay, it's a schooling system that teaches kids in a very specific type of way. You know, the Atkins diet, the 7 habits of highly effective people, the Webster technique. Okay, that's a signature system that was developed by Dr. Webster that has a protocol about tuning breech babies. Okay, the Pomodoro technique. And one I mentioned to you before, my very own, the community influencer method. Now, by having our own method, system, technique, this sort of thing here helps to really build out authority and expertise. It positions you literally as an authority. So I want to give you some frameworks, and I know at different times I've talked about this on the podcast, but let me go into some detail here about how you could develop your own signature system. Okay. Now, the big part about the signature system is not so much of the steps inside it. Almost the most important thing is naming it. Okay. So how do we go about finding your signature system? Okay. There's a few steps. First of all, think about what are your unique strengths and expertise? Is there a certain sort of case that you like looking after? Is it colicky babies? Is it, couples that have difficulty getting pregnant? Is it helping turn breech babies? Is it helping people with chronic sciatica or migraine headaches? What is it? Who is your system for? Okay, that's the second thing. So where do I have some skill set? Who is my system for? Okay, we need to make sure that you have a really detailed understanding of the problem that you're solving. What is your process for solving this problem? Okay, now for most people, the process that we go through for solving a problem is do a really good detailed history and examination. Okay, give a great recommendations for care, and along that have some supportive home care to go along with it. Okay, so could be a 3-part system for helping people with chronic low back pain. That's what it is. Our 3-part system is, first of all, you come into the practice, we're going to do a very detailed exam, take a history and get the test so we can get to the bottom of what's going on. Then what we're going to do is going to recommend a program of chiropractic care, very specific chiropractic care that is designed to help to decrease the stress that's built up on your spine and nervous system. And to support that, we've got some home care where we're going to help you manage the stresses of life so that you can, as quickly as possible, unwind the tension that's built up on your spine. That could be my 3-part system. Now, that's very similar to what many of us do as chiropractors, but you could name it the Pyke method, the 3-step, sciatica solution, if that's what you want. That's not a bad name, the 3-step sciatica solution. So that's the next step. Give it a unique name there as well. And in many cases, putting your name in it can be useful, or you can give it the name of the person that you're helping, if it's about, the 3-step colic relief, or the problem that you're solving. Now, what of course you're going to need to do with this is test and refine, okay? As you're developing your system, we can go through many different phases, but let me give you a couple of different examples of, chiropractors that I've worked with to help them kind of develop their system also. Now, change some names and details inside of here because I didn't have permission going through this, okay? So we'll call our first doc Dr. Wilson. Now, Dr. Wilson has an advanced understanding of spinal health and how it's impacted by sedentary lifestyles, okay? Most of us have that as well. He's not unique in that too. Now, additionally, he also has excellent communication skills and is good at explaining complex concepts in simple terms that his patients can understand. Now, his target audience, when he's putting together this signature system there as well, is office workers who suffer from chronic back pain due to long hours sitting at their desks. Okay, the problem he's solving, okay, his signature system will address the common problem of chronic back pain caused by poor posture and lack of movement. His process is very straightforward. It includes a comprehensive initial assessment, a customized care plan, combines chiropractic adjustments with tailored home exercises, and ongoing education about ergonomics and healthy habits at work. Now, he's given it a name. It's called the Desk Warriors Blueprint, a chiropractic approach to conquering office-related back pain. Now, think about this. Once we give something a name like Dr. Wilson did, let's suppose that what he's wanting to do is do a whole bunch more community-based talks. By just introducing his system, which is called the Desk Warriors Blueprint, the chiropractor's approach to conquering office-related back pain, there's a sense of professionalism and authority that goes along with that, as opposed to saying, hey, listen, we'd love to come into your workplace. We'd like to talk to you about how your office workers can sit more comfortably, decrease their risk of injuries while at work, and improve their productivity. When you have a system, your own signature system that you've developed, like this one through here, it'll open a lot of doors for you as well. So again, then it's all about kind of promoting it as well, okay? So let's give another example here as well. This wonderful doctor here, Dr. Harper, we'll call her, specializes in pediatric chiropractic care. She's got specific training in caring for infants. She has a beautiful calming presence and is wonderfully adept at making her young patients and practice members feel at ease. So her primary target, particularly when it comes to a signature system here as well, is the parents of infants suffering from colic. Now, she has a good understanding of colic. It's a common problem that's incredibly stressful for both the baby and the parents. I'm sure many of you might have experienced this either firsthand if you are a parent, or if you're a chiropractor. I'm sure you've seen this with kids. So it can be very stressful. So Dr. Harper's signature system will provide a non-invasive, holistic approach to soothing colicky symptoms. What's her process? Again, remember, process is often really simple and straightforward. Her process involves a gentle assessment of the infant, followed by a series of low-force chiropractic adjustments tailored for babies and guidance on techniques for parents to use at home, such as specific holding positions, diet, and gentle movements that can help to alleviate colic symptoms. She calls her system Colic Comfort, the Harper method for soothing unsettled infants. Now again, simple name there again, Colic Comfort, the Harper method for soothing unsettled infants. Now that she has a system in around this, it's about communicating it. In all of her videos online, she can be saying, hey, in today's video, I want to share a part of the Colic Comfort system, the Harper method for soothing unsettled infants as well. We're going to talk about settling things that you can do for your baby at home, okay? So by having something like a signature system there, we really build authority. So have a play with that. What are the things that you could build into a signature system as well? Now, remember, authority is not just about showcasing your qualifications and your knowledge. It's also about being reliable, trustworthy, making sure that, again, a reliable and trustworthy source of information to your patients and your audience. It's about being transparent about what you know, but it's also about being transparent about what you don't know. We build tremendous amount of authority by being just as open about what we don't know as what we do as well, okay? So think about it. How could you start to implement authority into your practice? Could you put together a signature system? Do you have things like your credentials and your certifications displayed in the office? Are they up on your website as well? So maybe you could brainstorm some ideas with your practice members or even your staff to work out where is it that you could be on authority and where could you position yourself more as an authority. All right. We've come to the halfway point of this episode, all on persuasion and influence. Okay. So we've gone through reciprocity, we've talked about scarcity, and then we talked about authority. So in our next episode, we're going to go through consistency, liking, and social proof. Now, the key for you with this episode in terms of where to from here is starting to look for opportunities where you could use that. How could you add more reciprocity into your conversations, into what you do? Where could you add more value to your community? Where can you ethically use scarcity, and how can you start to position yourself as an authority? Okay. Remember, the key is to make sure that this is always win-win. If it's a win for you, but a loss for the patient, then ultimately, okay, this is not going to work for you in the long term. Now, I want to share a little simple saying I heard on a training I was on recently. And he said, to know and not do is not to know. It's one thing to listen to this podcast and hear these ideas that you might think, this could be valuable. But if we don't implement them, then you may as well not know it at all. So play with this stuff. Be playful, run some experiments, see what works for you and what doesn't. And I'll see you back here next week as we dive into consistency, liking, and social proof. As always, folks, thanks for what you do. Keep saving lives. See you back here real soon. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.